Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm Todd. Good evening, chat. Hello, and welcome to the stream. I guess we're not doing an intro tonight. I forgot to click it. Kind of hit the button. Wasn't really ready, but we're ready. We're here. So we're just gonna dive into it tonight. Welcome to Ring 'em Up, presented by Rally Tal Sports. Todd, how we feeling tonight, sir?
My brother, I am fantastic. It is nice to be talking baseball again on Thursdays. It's been a second. I mean,
Yes. Well, I mean,
we've
it's
been
been a pretty epic couple of weeks in the sports world.
it has, man. And we're talking about, we spent a lot of time covering, the NBA, obviously with the finals going on, which we're still going to touch base on. And I mean, to me, this is one of the better, regardless of the series being 4-1, I think this is one of the better NBA finals we've watched in the last few years. And primarily is because it's not the Warriors or the Heat,
Right.
I'm sorry, or the I don't know, any Lakers or whomever it may be, or the Celtics, or it's two teams that we don't get to watch. I mean, how often do you get to watch the Nuggets during the year unless you dedicate time to get to watching them? It's very limited.
Or they're on ESPN in a primetime game.
Being in Mountain Time is like the worst time if you're on the East Coast to try to watch a basketball game, because a 9 p.m. start time over here is 7 o'clock there, so it's fine. But for the working person to make it through an NBA game, that means you got to be up until 11:30, and most people don't stay up that late. So it was really, really nice to get to watch the Nuggets. I felt like it was bubble year where me and you were sitting in my living room, just gorging ourselves with basketball for hours and hours.
Yes.
Because we were just so desperate for sports.
There was nothing else to watch. That was it.
Right. That was your only option. And we waited because baseball had come back around the same time too. But I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you remember how you felt, but watching a baseball game with no fans is just even felt off.
It was terrible.
It's too quiet.
It was terrible. Yeah, you can't. It's kind of like the reverse boycott there in Oakland, man. Like, what the hell happened out there?
Holy shit! Yeah, we're definitely gonna.
We got to at least touch on that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing to give credit where credit's due, and we've talked about Nikola Jokic on this podcast quite a bit, whether it's on just you and I talking about it, or the three of us, the four of us with a Nation. And at the beginning of this year, we said that Giannis was the best player in the NBA. Yes. And I think my opinion's changed on that. I don't know how you feel, but my opinion's changed on who the best player in the NBA is after I watched 14 games that Nikola Jokic played in during the playoffs, and I never one time felt like that he made a major miscue. He had 4 turnovers in 16 games or 20 games.
Nikola Jokic made me a lot of money. He made me a lot of money over this playoffs series.
That's the best way to put it. You turned a name into dollars.
Yeah, I parlayed him. I bet Lakers Nuggets series, and I bet the finals, and I made over almost $500 just on betting him in the series that he's playing in, because I know people are going to have to bring their A game to beat him. So people are going to step up and perform. I mean, this man's a walking triple double as a 7-foot center. I don't know what what's the recipe to stop this man? If he's not the best player, if this is why I've been saying the entire season. I know I've been getting a ton of opposition on this, but this is why Nikola Jokic is the league's best player. He's the best player in the world right now. He's the MVP. He wasn't going to get it 3 years in a row, but I will die on that fucking hill that Nikola Jokic is the MVP.
I don't think it's a lonely hill, man. I just rest my laurels on.
Joel had a great season. I'm not taking anything away from him. He had an amazing season.
He had the best. Better. He is. Right, and it's the same thing as Jordan. Jordan didn't win them every year. Bill Russell didn't win every year. Those guys when they were the best in their time.
What up, Josh? Thank you for the video.
But it's just crazy, man. Because I want to give the total stat number for Jokic over 20 games in the playoffs, right? Because I think that's where you look at an average and you're like, oh yeah, well I expect him to average 30, 14, and 10, right? Because he's averaged a triple double the last 3 years. He scored 600 points, 269 rebounds, and had 190 assists.
And how many games?
And 20 games, and had a block per game, and had a steal per game.
Unreal.
So, and shot 55% from the floor. It's the single greatest playoff performance in the history of the NBA. I don't know how you can even argue that. You know what I mean? Like it's statistically, it is the best thing that's happened in the NBA playoffs ever. Period. Point blank.
Yeah.
You look at
best
those
postseason. We just watched.
You look at those three numbers: points, rebounds, assists. The primary three categories that accrue what you are as a talent of a player. He is first in playoff appearances. And to just put it in perspective, when I looked it up, when Michael Jordan played in his prime and the Bulls were making the playoffs, they averaged about 18 to 20 games in a playoff run, right? Because it was 5-7-7, right? It's all the way across, but it used to be 5-7-7, and it's still the same amount of games. Jordan never scored 600 points. Wilt Chamberlain never scored. Jabbar never scored 600 points. Like, he did that in 20 games. It's just an insane number. It's an insane number. It feels like, to me, it's one of those things that almost feels like it's really kind of out of reach moving forward. Like, he's the only guy, if they continue to make the playoffs, that I think can like kind of pass himself. It's kind of like what Steph Curry's doing now with shooting 3-pointers. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's already set the bar so high so quickly that he's going to be the one that holds this record moving forward. I think Nikola Jokic right now, as the way it currently stands in the NBA, is the only guy that can do this, right?
Yeah.
Score the most points, have the most rebounds, have the most assists in an entire playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, his game is just unmatched. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody else on the planet that can guard him. I know Dwight Howard still thinks he can, but I mean, bubble Jokic was not the Jokic that you're seeing today.
No.
And I don't think Dwight Howard would do any better than Anthony Davis tried to do, in his best efforts.
Or DeAndre Ayton or Bam Adebayo or Cody Zeller. None of that. Yeah, like I've never seen someone of his size have such he could do the percentage of time that he brought the ball off the floor was unreal. Like,
his endurance is amazing too.
It is. It's amazing. And I think a lot of it, Bobby, and I don't know we watch basketball kind of similarly, but everybody has a different perspective on the game, but it's like watching. It's almost like watching LeBron, where you're watching them move on the floor and you're like, it doesn't even look like he's trying. Everything just looks like it's like, oh, well, I got to go down and, make this turnaround jump shot and put the game back within reach 5 times in a row, which he did in game 3. I mean, they got down and he just said, I mean, they did the audio for one of the timeouts. He just said, give me the ball. And a lot of guys have had that ability, right? A lot of guys in the history of the NBA have had the ability to say, give me the ball, score, turn the game around. But it's for him, it's not just scoring. Him holding onto the ball creates a completely different dynamic on the floor that I honestly don't know if we've ever seen it before. I don't know if we've ever watched basketball and seen one person force a defense into a box and one.
At
the NBA level.
You saw everything in the kitchen sink thrown at this guy, and the Denver Nuggets as a whole. Not to take anything away from the rest of the team. I know we're just talking a lot about Jokic, but Jamal Murray also had a phenomenal series.
Dude, and watching him after winning the NBA Finals and seeing how grateful he was, dude, I cried. Him giving his speech.
You have a guy that's standing there, like saying, like, "Thank you for not giving up on me when I completely destroyed my knee." Like,
2 years ago, there was question of if he would be able to play basketball. Back. I mean, this. There were a lot of people, and I'm sure you remember this too. It was the Derrick Rose comparison. Like, we got to see one small frame of reference of how great this guy can be, and it was like, well, he'll never be the same ever again. We're never going to see this Jamal Murray. And how successful he was and how humble he is as a point guard too. I think that's the the humility that comes with being being a successful point guard in the NBA it's so important, because now today's game has changed so much that a point guard doesn't have I call it like the John Stockton humility, where it's bringing the ball up the floor to create a shot that's not yours. And Jamal Murray does it so well. And now he's great at creating his own shot too. I don't want to take that away from him. But his ability to just to take what he has on the floor and turn it into points, it's great, man. I love watching two guys that, have clearly figured out what the marquee points are in their game. And obviously for Nikola Jokic, just kind of basically everything. I don't really see him as a big gap anywhere other than somewhat defensively, because he just doesn't always. I mean, he's just not blocking more than a shot a game, which is still insane. But like, I don't know. It's really cool, man. I like Jamal. Obviously, I'm a Kentucky guy, so I like Jamal Murray a lot before this. I got to see him at Kentucky, there. But yeah, I mean, I did say I thought he was going to be the Finals MVP, and it's hard to match when someone averages a triple-double in the NBA Finals to be able to have an argument for who should be MVP. But
yeah,
he was right there. They had a 30-10-10 game together.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Jokic went 40, 20, and 10, but
yeah,
who's counting?
Right. Right.
But no, I think you put it well, and I think Dad's comment, coming in here. I think the Nuggets as a whole, like it's that team, like the humility that is on that roster, whether it be the two stars and Murray and Jokic, or Jeff Green, who had open heart surgery and didn't know if he was just going to be able to live a normal life, and comes back and wins a championship.
Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. had 2 back surgeries. He played and it was an impact in the. It's insane.
That's a team full of people that got second chances with their bodies, and they made the most of it.
Yeah.
And they're super grateful for it. And that, like, you can't want a better team to win the finals than them. I mean, granted, it would have been cool to see Jimmy Butler, Udonis get one in his last year in his ride out, but man, I don't think anybody touches that Nuggets team this year, man. No. Nobody.
And here's the thing too, and I, you and I have spoken so highly of Jimmy Butler, and I think we saw one quarter of it, and it was the fourth quarter of Game 5 of playoff Jimmy Butler. He was so gassed that you go, what was it? They went
back-to-back 7 games.
Yeah, they went 7, 7, and 5. Like, that's a lot of basketball. And he was so dominant in both of those series that I mean, you're talking about he played over. I think I looked. He played 80 games. Guys don't play 80 games anymore. That's just, it's unheard of, right?
Yeah,
Guys
I mean, you also have to take into account, that the Nuggets got a tremendous amount of rest, sweeping the Lakers.
Sure.
And then the fact
9 days.
The Celtics Heat series went 7. I mean, that's some people call that a disadvantage, having to sit that far, between the next game. But man, like when you play at the level these guys do, that 9 days is monumental. I was going to say momentous, but monumental is the word. It is a large difference between what they're able to accomplish on the floor. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I think the guys that play in Denver have a slight advantage over the rest of the league, and I'll tell you why. That higher altitude training and playing in that environment is better for your conditioning. Like, you are going to be a better conditioned athlete doing it at the higher altitude. When you come down low, to the other cities, you're going to run for days and not get tired because you're not having to, fight that air that's up there in the mountains. So
yeah, well,
I think there is a little advantage there.
Sure. I think there's something to being able to, I mean, what you're doing in those scenarios is that you're maintaining kind of like what they call like your oxygen saturation rate, where it's basically your body's ability to pump blood and to be able to keep, your resting heart rate just a little bit lower, or at a healthy rate for a longer period of time, right? Like, a lot of people track their saturation rate while they sleep because it's depicting on how hard that their heart is working as they're sleeping. And, athletes use it a lot too, in terms of being able to have sustained endurance during an NBA game. And I think you're right. I think when you train in higher altitude, you're building your lungs you're building your lungs up to sustain more oxygen, right? Or to use, let me rephrase it, use less oxygen, right? Because you have less of an opportunity to catch your breath in higher altitude. Right. So then you're working harder to figure out how to survive that. But I think that most of these guys they're not training in Denver in the off season though. You know what I mean? Like Nikola Jokic is going to Serbia and he doesn't play basketball for a month when he's
riding his horses.
Yeah. And, and Jamal Murray goes back to Canada, which maybe you could say some of that's attributed to because, Canada is just at somewhat of a higher altitude than most of the United States. But, something I saw about a specific player from the Denver Nuggets was Aaron Gordon. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Aaron Gordon has a facility as the bottom level of his house. What I mean by that is that he's broken down the bottom of his house into 4 separate areas. He has a weight room, he has a gym, he has a theater room, and then he has a bedroom, which has a kitchen and everything in it, right? So he basically took the bottom level of his house and made that his like training quarters in the off season. And he put up murals of the people in the world that he admires the most. And I can't tell you off the top of my head who they were. It's across multiple media platforms and professionals, professions. But
sure,
when they asked him why he did that, he said, I needed going into this season. He said, I realized that I needed to be better than I was this year because this year didn't get me anything but, he's just a good dunker still. And look how much more dynamic his game is, right? Like, I think that's the difference for these guys on the Nuggets. And we kind of touched on it, is that a lot of these guys are living through, right now it's a second opportunity for guys like, for Jeff Green, it's kind of like it was really a final opportunity. He's somewhat older playing professional basketball, or a guy like Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. This was his chance to live up to, don't forget that 6 years ago, he was the number 1 high school basketball player in the continental North America. He was insane. Had the craziest, one of the best high school highlight reels I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. I think it's his ability to, we see it now at the NBA level, his ability to just create space and shoot. But, this is a guy that went into Missouri, had back surgery, and gets drafted as a rookie and has to have another back surgery with, some fusions in the spine that coincide with those surgeries. So you're talking about impeding your ability to navigate and walk for a full year for him too. And he turned around and he was a real impact player for 3/5 of the NBA finals. So I think a lot of it for the Nuggets, man, is just that roster just has 6 or 7 pieces that just work. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's in the same conversation.
Yeah.
He's the only champ. Yeah, he was the only champion on that roster. And I would argue that he had one of the biggest turning points for them to win that game when he took that steal from Jimmy Butler towards the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that was the nail in the coffin.
That's when he truly felt the quote unquote wind out of the sails of the Heat when he got that steal. That was it. The game was over after that. So
yeah,
I love it, man.
Jump that passing lane. Yep.
Yeah, and look, we talked a lot about the Nuggets, and I want to give the Heat credit where credit's due. They fucking fought their asses off to get there. To be an 8 seed, a lot of credit. To have to play in the playoffs, and to get to the NBA Finals and win and play 5 games with a team that they were completely outmatched against. Kudos to them.
To even take it, not get swept. Good for you.
Yeah, and I don't like Jeff Van Gundy that much. I actually, in fact, I despise listening to him speak. He's right up there with Dick Vitale and Tim Tebow for me listening to speak about a sport. But he said this in Game 5 of the Heat multiple times. Just I think to prove his point was the role players had to work too hard for them to score. And if you're relying on your role players to win, you're not going to win. I'm sorry, you don't win. If your role players are your primary source of scoring, you're not winning games against the Nuggets. And it's not a slack to Bam Adebayo because Bam Adebayo played great too. But the Heat really needed Jimmy Butler. They needed playoff Jimmy Butler, if you will, playoff Jimmy Butler, and they just didn't have it. And that was really it. And I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to dog Jimmy Butler either because he had a great playoff run, but God, 24 games is it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
That's a ton.
That's a ton of basketball. 22 games. It's a ton of basketball.
Dad, I understand. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Jimmy Butler dig deep. He just ran, like, there's only so much gas in the tank. There's only so much, like, you can do. They knocked off the number 1 seed. They knocked off the number 2 or the number 4 seed. They went through every good team in the East. They beat the Celtics. They beat who else did they beat? The Bucks. They beat the Bucks. They beat the Celtics. They beat, who's the team in the middle?
I'm drawing a blank right now too.
I can't remember. Regardless, for them to have to go and face that team that they like, there's no answer for Jokic and Murray. Like, it doesn't matter how much he is conditioned or runs or
Bucks, Knicks, and the Celtics. Thank you, Carp.
Thank you.
Caught at the same time. Yeah.
Good night.
6, 7. So he played 5, 13, 20, 25 playoff games.
25 games.
Yeah. And average 43 minutes a game.
43 minutes. Wow. And those games are 48 minutes.
Yeah. And look, I understand where Charlie's coming from too. I think that there's always a general level of, I think people now just call it fuck it, we ball, right? Like, you just go out, you do your thing, and you don't allow being tired depict the true picture. And Jimmy Butler even admitted it. He took accountability that he shouldn't be tired. Is not the reason that he's not playing well. He should be able to play through being tired. He didn't perform up to the level of expectation. I think that's just you and I, our perspective on watching him from, behind the TV screen, was that he looked gassed. And maybe tired. He was, maybe he wasn't, but he never said that was the reason why he wasn't performing. He just said he wasn't performing up to the level that they needed him to play.
Yeah. No, Dad, that's awesome, man. We're just giving you our perspective on what we saw, and what we saw was a gassed Jimmy Butler who's tired. At least that's how I saw it and what I saw. So, but no, appreciate the comments there. Let's all right. Anything else you want to talk about on the Nuggets, Jokic, Heat, Eric Spoelstra?
No, I just Carp's point is interesting about if Tyler Herro comes back. I actually think the opposite.
I don't think they make it to the finals if he's there.
I agree with you, because he is a scorer only, and even if they make it to the finals and he plays 40 minutes in Game 5, he makes very little impact on. Maybe he scores 25 points, but that just means Caleb Martin he scores 8 instead of 14, and Gabe Vincent scores 6 instead of 10, right? But he's a 6th man of the year, right? And as a Kentucky guy, that's crazy for me to say that I don't think he makes an impact, but he's not a defender, and the Heat needed more defense than offense.
Yeah. I mean, granted, more offense would not have been a detriment, but they would have been giving up more points.
Yes, that wasn't the highlighting factor that they needed.
I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah. All right,
I understand what you're getting at.
25 minutes of basketball on a baseball podcast is fucking ridiculous. Let's talk some baseball, baby.
It's been a minute. All right, so we're gonna precursor this with I did not pick anybody that played a season prior to 1960 on my list. These are all relatively within the last half century or better.
Yep.
Mainly because it's just a different game. This is what I know. I'm sure my list is going to piss a few people off, and that's fine. But it is what it is.
Right. So the list that we're speaking of here, and we've been talking.
Sorry. I guess I didn't really talk about it.
No, you're good. You're good. So we've been alluding to this list over the last couple of Ring 'em Up podcasts. So talking about who are our top 5 hitters. right? And Bobby and I don't correspond over these things prior. This is just a list of 5 guys that we put together. And ironically enough, we kind of followed the same path. And I have one guy that played in the 60s on my list, and that probably gives it away for some. But I think a lot of this just comes down to you love what you know, right? And the information that we've absorbed hasn't really come from anything prior than 1994, 1995, maybe a little bit pre-strike, but that's not really in our ball, right? We were toddlers, so we're not retaining baseball then. But so this list is our top 5 hitters based on how we watch baseball. Right? That's really what it comes down to. This is a top 5 list on how
it is a completely subjective, objective, not subjective.
Yes, objective.
These are our opinions. These are our opinions. These are not anything set in stone. It is 2 random middle-aged fellas that just happened to do a podcast that wanted to do a list for you beautiful people, and this is what we've come up with, at least for ourselves. So you're more than welcome to join us and tell us who's on your list.
Yeah, so give us your top 5 hitters, and if you have any guys that don't have your top 5, throw them in the comments.
You're more than welcome to shit all over our picks. Here, let us hear it. You can praise them, do whatever you want. Any comment is a good comment. So
that's right. All right, number 5. Who you got, brother?
We're going 5-1.
Let's go 5-1.
I didn't have these. I didn't have these guys in any particular order. Ooh. I didn't have these guys in any particular order. Just because it was
all time.
It was hard to rank them.
Does not need to be current.
All right, I'm gonna. Oh my God, hold on. I have to reorder my screen here because I want to make. Okay, all right. I'm just. I'll figure it out. All right, number 5 for me, Pete Rose.
Okay.
All-time hit king.
Sure.
I don't know how anybody can argue that. 42-56. Next.
Yeah. Fair. That's fair. He's not in my top 5, believe it or not. And I
that's fine.
I teetered with this quite a bit because I went into this and I look up here and I'm fucking looking at
Pete Rose.
A series of photos of Pete Rose looking right in front of me of him trucking Ray Fosse in the 1970 All-Star game.
Son of a bitch. Why did you pick that?
But the thing about Pete Rose, and I have
all time, Ryan, all time.
Yeah, all time. So I have a ton of respect for what Pete Rose did for the game of baseball because, again, I talked about kind of like the untouchable stats. This is an untouchable stat. Nobody will have 4,257 hits. It won't happen. It'll never happen. But
one of the unbreakable records in sports.
It's an unbreakable record in sports. But here's where I stand on Pete Rose. And I'm gonna walk over myself here because somebody on my list is very similar to this. But to get 4,200 hits is the greatest thing for an offense in baseball. But well over half of his hits were singles, and I can't remember. I don't remember the exact stat. I'm not going to quote it, but there's a large percentage of his hits that didn't amount to runs. So that's kind of like in a job where you're in an administrative role and you get to a new office and the office is super dirty. And then you just go and clean it up. And you're like, well, my job's done here. And then you go to the next office and clean it up. You're just knocking off the low hanging fruit. Right. And to have 4,200 hits at the major league level is not a slouch. And again, I am not knocking what Pete Rose did. I just, when I put my list together, I looked at guys that had, higher on base percentage, higher OPS, got into the conversation of most doubles of all time,
wow,
of home runs, sluggings, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's kind of where that's where Pete Rose just doesn't fall into that list for me. Right. Babe Ruth's not on my list either, and he should fit all those parameters. But again, I don't know. I know only stats of Babe Ruth. and that he could eat a fuck ton of hot dogs. That's it. So I don't know how I could put him in a list.
He's not on my list.
Yeah, I can't put him in any list other than I know that he has the third most home runs in the history of baseball.
I also look at guys that I think could, like, guys on my list, if they're older, are guys that could hit baseballs today.
I love that. That's fair.
That's my thought. Like, guys that transcend the game can play at any era, hit any ball in any era. Like, that was criteria for my list. And quite frankly, Babe Ruth, he probably could do it. Could he do it well?
Who
knows?
It's
That's
like
a question
Ty Cobb.
that will never be answered.
Right. It's like Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb held a bat like a fucking axe. Like, I don't think he plays in today's game, but also you couldn't, kill a guy at a bar or slide cleats up.
There wasn't anybody throwing a 95 mile an hour cutter that had 14 inches of run.
Right. There was no Ben Joyce. And before World War II, there was no Ben Joyce.
Inches of run, whatever the hell that pitch was that he threw.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
Redonkulous.
Carp, the list is solid. You're going to hear a couple of these names, I'm assuming, from Bobby and I both as we go through this here.
I've got a few of the names on your list are on my list, but not all of them. The Acuna one is interesting, though. I like that. But go ahead.
I like it too.
Number 5 on yours.
Yeah, so let me talk about Acuna because I think this is interesting because I think that we haven't even scratched the surface of what Ronald Acuna Jr. can do in baseball.
He's got one of the sexiest right-handed swings I've seen.
I've ever seen.
Because right-handers don't typically have sweet swings, and he's got a sweet swing.
I don't know. I don't think that there's anybody in baseball right now as a whole that matches what he is. I really don't. I thought Juan Soto was going to be that, and he's not. Ronald Acuna is absolutely different. He is different in today's game. He would have been different in yesterday's game. He would have been different in 2 decades ago. It's insane what he does. I mean, he's a guy that should be, as long as he stays healthy and he does what he does now, he should be in the MVP conversation every single year. It's wild. He's wild.
He's unreal.
Yes. All right. Number 5 on my list is somebody on Carp's list is Barry Bonds.
Number 5.
Number 5. I told you. So before the podcast, I said it's crazy to not have Barry Bonds in your top 3, let alone in your top 5.
But number 5.
Number 5. Number 5. We're going to get into it, baby, because think it gets a little saucier from here.
Oh, you can't even throw shit out right now because he's higher on my list. You get one cool Barry Bonds stat, I'll throw another one out later.
That's fair. All right. So let me give his career OPS because I think that could be top 2 for most people. His career OPS is 1.051. So on base percentage plus slugging over 100%.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy. All right. Number 4. Who you got?
Oh my God. Kind of for the same reasons. I had Pete Rose. I've got Hank Aaron.
I love it. There's nothing wrong with putting Hank Aaron on a list of an all-time hitter when he was
Hank Aaron, number 4. He was the all-time home run leader for quite a few years until Barry Bonds broke that record. Broke that record. But yeah, I mean the first guy I believe to eclipse 700 home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. No, second technically.
The second technically.
Yeah. Babe Ruth did it.
How many did he have career? Was he 713 or 7?
Wait a minute. I don't know. No, he didn't have 700. You're right.
That's what I thought.
He had 690 something.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought. I thought Hank Aaron was the first one to do it.
No, he had 714. So you're tripping me up here, dude. I'm sorry. Guessing myself. There's 4 people all time with 700 career home runs.
755. Okay, that's right. Babe Ruth had 714. He hit 755. It was 756 that broke. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. No, I looked at it a lot. So the numbers are all jumbled. But yeah, I mean, Hank Aaron, I don't think there's really a lot you need to say there. A career 143 WAR, which is just ridiculous. Career 300 hitter, career slug or career OPS of 928. I mean, there's really not much else you can really say about that. And he only had 1,300 strikeouts on 12,400 bats.
That's pretty damn good.
It's pretty solid. So number 4 for me, Henry, Hank, Aaron.
All right. Number 4 for me hurts me a little bit because for the first decade of his career, he was an absolute pain in the ass for a fan.
I know where you're going.
And it's Albert Pujols.
Yep. Great pick.
It's Albert Pujols. We're talking about almost 3,400 career hits, over 7 home runs, almost 700 doubles, 2,200 plus RBIs. Before the slew of injuries that he had when he made that monster contract with the Angels. So I think this kind of puts into perspective why I have him on this list. His career average batting average over the first 10 years of his career was almost 330. He averaged over 40 home runs. He averaged over 110 runs knocked in, and he averaged over 35 doubles a season. Wow. I think at a time where pitching was getting better too, right? I think that was a point in time in baseball where pitching was starting to get close to surpassing hitting, right? And you're talking about a time when the shift was a part of the game. You're talking about 100-mile-an-hour pitchers. You're talking about, guys like, the NL Central at that point in time had a lot of pitching talent. The Reds had a lot of pitching talent when Albert Pujols was a Cardinal. And,
iconic swing too, man.
And he was, the first thing that came. So what I have typed up here on my screen is that Albert Pujols was a fucking wrecking ball. That's the summation that I have of Albert Pujols in a Cardinals uniform. There was nothing or no one that stopped him at the plate. I think in my lifetime, I think of hitters over the course of me watching baseball and understanding baseball. I don't know if I've ever seen a right-handed hitter be more comfortable at the plate than Albert Pujols was early in his career. Seriously, because he didn't really strike out a lot either. He averaged less than 100 strikeouts a season. And as a power hitter, that's nuts. That's insane. Even later in his career, when he unfortunately, I think he played too long, but he didn't really strike out a lot. And in today's game, that's rare. And my memories of watching Albert Pujols, of seeing him in person too, the first time I went and saw Albert Pujols in a Cardinals uniform at Great American Ballpark in 2005, he hit 2 doubles and a home run. And I'll never forget, and this is the kind of like the romanticism of the game. I'll never forget the sound that the ball made when he hit his home run off the bat. And there's a specific sound that Birch makes when you make perfect contact with it. And I think that it's different than anything else. And when he hit that home run, I didn't see the ball. And I closed. I remember sitting next to my dad, sitting next to my brother and closing my eyes for a few seconds after he hit it. And just like imagining how far it went rather than watching how far it went. Because to me, the moment was so good that I didn't want to see if it was like a wall scraper or not. And it didn't turn out to be a wall scraper, but but the idea of someone, and a lot of athletes have said it over time. I mean, obviously Ken Griffey Jr., someone on Carp's list, people have said this. There's just a specific sound that great hitters have off the bat that's just unmatched. I think Albert Pujols, and this is a hot take for me, has the best sounding swing that we've ever had in baseball. I think there's a difference between being a great hitter.
It's like when he makes contact.
If you go back and listen, and that's my advice to anybody watching now or listening later, watch a 5-minute Albert Pujols highlight reel and just listen to the contact that he makes, and not just on home runs. Find some highlights of, some extra base hits, him hitting the ball to the opposite field. It doesn't really ever sound that different. And there's a stat that baseball tracks now, and it's percentage of barreled balls, right? It's percentage of the ball hitting the sweet spot on a wooden bat, which is about, I don't know, this big, 4 to 5 inches. And he had 32% barreled ball base hits. That means every 3 hits that he had were just pure barrels.
That's insane.
It's insane, dude. It's insane. And it's unmatched what he did. I think that I oftentimes forgot for a long time, and I don't think I've given credit where credit's due to Albert Pujols for a long time of being a baseball fan of how great he truly was. He was honestly, dude, he's a century talent. He really is.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wanted to make sure that I took the time to say that tonight and to put it into some sort of record that can be reviewed again. Albert Pujols is one of the best players of the 21st century, and I can, and
it's a pleasure to say that we got to watch him in person.
Yeah, I hope that people in the year 2100 look back at Albert Pujols and be like, holy shit, this guy's one of the best players over the last 100 years. Right? Because I just think that that's how much of an impact he had on the game, and people just forget.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget because of the last 12 years of his career. The first 10 years of his career, Albert Pujols was the best player in baseball all the time. So
no, absolutely. What up, Rob? No, it's kind of like that lasting argument of like, giving great players a hard time on what they're doing wrong instead of just appreciating the greatness that's in front of you. Like taking the greatness for granted is what a lot of sports fans do.
For sure.
Like
I'm a part of that. I fall guilty of that for him.
Like Tom Brady. I shit on Tom Brady for a long time. We watched the greatest quarterback to ever do it. We got to watch his whole career start to finish.
Yeah.
Like I can appreciate that now.
And to be a football fan for the whole time. Yeah, to be a football fan the whole time and watch it. I'm sure that's the same way people felt about, Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas and Roger Staubach and those guys. Like, it's just it's a treasure.
LeBron James, like Cristiano Ronaldo's, if you're football fans.
Yeah. Serena Williams, if you respect all sports.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's Tiger Woods. I mean, shit. Like
Tiger for sure.
Speaking of the golf and U.S. Open, big shout out to Ricky Fowler today, shooting
Holy
a 62
shit.
along with Xander Schauffele, who also shot a 62. They both shot 62 in the first round of the U.S. Open today.
What?
They're both -8 going into the second round.
Holy mackerel.
So there was one other person to shoot 62 in an opening round of a U.S. Open, and Schauffele and Fowler did it and finished literally within like 5 minutes of each other today.
Wow.
So what a hell of a round for those guys. Sorry, off topic here. Rob, I think that answers your question.
It's a little Weller special reserve, finishing off the bottle tonight for the podcast.
There you go. All right.
This might be your bottle, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, no, it was a gift. Enjoy. Obviously, you've already enjoyed it. So
cheers. Yeah. Whoops. I'll pay back.
I'm not worried about it, man. You've never had the pleasure of a Weller. Well, we're gonna have to change that for you, sir.
That's crazy, dude.
We're gonna have to
come to Columbus.
Yeah, we'll get you. We'll get you a bottle.
We got a bedroom.
Are we on number 3?
Yep,
number 3. All right. So these last 3 guys on my list, it's really tough for me to put them in a 1 through 3, but I think I know where I'm going to go with it. Number 3 is going to be Ichiro.
Whoa. Okay.
Ichiro, if he would have played his entire career here instead of having a 10-year career in Japan and then playing like 15 years here in America, the man would have had probably close to 5,000 hits.
I'll give that stat at some point in time.
It's a ridiculous
I'll tell you what it
stat.
is.
And I know it's somewhere in that ballpark, if not higher. But yeah, I mean, this guy came into the league and just was a storm. 200 hits a season for 10 straight seasons?
Yes, 10.
To start his career.
Yes.
I mean, this guy was the absolute pivotal, like you knew the little, like, he was right up there, like, the ace walking out for the Seattle Mariners in the bottom of the first inning. Like, that was it. Like, that's what you were getting. You were getting Ichiro, and he was also a great defender as well. Not to take anything away from his fielding abilities, but yeah, I think Ichiro is just kind of ahead of his time. As far as like what he was able to do with the baseball and like being a pure leadoff hitter. I think when people say best hitter of all times, they want to go for the sexy, like, oh, who's got the highest home runs, slugging percentage, this and that. Like, we're talking pure hitters, and this is one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is not a guy that you wanted to face first to start your day on the mound.
No, he was a menace.
Yeah, like that's a really shitty way to start your day. Oh, Ichiro slapped a single into left center.
Yeah,
Great.
off a 1-2 splitter 4 inches off the plate that he stuck his bat out.
Yeah, that actually hit the ground, and he still found a way to put it in play.
He did that 4 times in his career.
One of them went for a home run.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just when I put this list together, I was just really thinking, like, who was just a true hitter, who could hit the baseball regardless of whether or not it went over the fence, like who was helping their team win baseball games. And by him hitting the ball, getting on base, putting his team in a position to score runs early and often, I think it was just a great way for them to, to win baseball. Unfortunately, they never won a ring, but, I think if he was in a better situation, he would have definitely won a ring, kind of like the Trout Ohtani debacle that's going on in LA for the last decade.
Look, I mean, the Mariners that first year that he was on the team, they still right now in the modern era of baseball have the single season most wins in a season. So it's I'll talk about him more because he's still to be spoken of.
Like, it's why this is why it is completely 100% your feelings on it, because like there's so many people that could be in this list. Like, it's hard to narrow it to just 5 people. It's almost disrespectful to try to do it, honestly.
It is. That's why we give honorable mentions. That's why we give the just desserts at the end of this, because there are so many names in baseball that we're not going to touch that deserve to be on an all-time list for this, and we're not going to talk about them at all. We're not going to give them 2 minutes. So.
Oh, for sure. There's going to be a ton of people. That's why we need comments from everybody.
Yep.
All right, Todd, number 3.
Stan Musial. Stan the Man Musial. I think
you got a lot of Cardinals on your list, man.
I have 2.
Disgusting. That's a
lot.
lot.
That's double. That's double.
That's 40% of your list, sir.
That's true. So that's double. That's double of what your all-time lineup was, because you only had 1.
I had 1. So, it was Yachty.
Yeah, so I have to. This is before the Reds and the Cardinals were in the same division, so that maybe saves me just a little bit. But,
all right.
But
it's a weak leg, but it's a leg. It's a leg to stand on.
So let me give you Stan Musial. This is where he kind of falls into my list here as an all-time great hitter, because plate discipline.
Can I time out real quick? I completely forgot to throw out this insane Ichiro stat. Carp, are you ready for this? Todd, are you ready for this stat?
Hit me, baby. Let me see if it's on my list.
25 of the more than 37,000 pitches that Ichiro saw during his entire career came with his average sitting below 300.
Whoa. Holy shit. 25.
I'll repeat that. 25 of the more than 37,000 pitches that he took and swung at in his whole career, only 25 of those pitches was his average below 300.
That's insane.
There you go.
Wow. Holy shit.
I had to throw that one. I completely forgot about that. I wanted to throw that out there.
That's nuts.
That's one of the most ridiculous stats I've ever heard.
How do you okay, so just based on that alone, right?
You got to think he's got to take pitches to get to 300 first.
Right.
Like
so these are kind of the parameters when I try to set the expectation for like a non-baseball fan, or maybe like a casual baseball fan. You're a Hall of Famer if you get on base, or I'm sorry, if you get if you have a hit 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. Ichiro Suzuki did that for 90. I know this number. It's 99.97% of his career. He was hitting over 300. So this is the number. right? Because I'm gonna go this. So he's number one on my list. I think we just cover the bases here on Ichiro, and then we don't talk about him anymore.
Oh, he's number one on your list. Okay,
he's number one on my list.
Okay,
right. So I can still go through number two, and I can spend time on number two because I think our number twos might actually be the same now, or maybe your number two is my number two might be your number one.
I'm flip flopped. I think for you.
So this is the thing about Ichiro. So Ichiro played roughly 30 years of professional baseball.
Yeah.
At the highest level. 36 years of professional baseball at all levels. Right? So let's put that number in there. So
36
at the highest
years?
36 years. So let's let me put this into perspective. In the time frame that he played Major League Baseball in the Nippon League in Japan, he had 4,367 career base hits.
That doesn't even include the majors.
That is the majors. That's all. That's the summation of everything.
Oh, okay.
So this is professional. This is at the highest level that you can play at in whatever country.
And what was the number?
Designated. 4,367.
So okay, so just a few more. Honestly, I thought it would have been higher.
So he had 1,278 hits at the professional level. He had almost 1,000 in 6 years in the minor leagues of Japan.
Holy shit.
He had 967 hits in 6 years.
Oh my God.
Just think about that.
Was that your phone?
Yeah, this is my phone. Can you hear my phone vibrating?
I was so confused. I was like, that's why I was looking around. I was like, whose phone's ringing? I was like, it's not my phone. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Carp, we're gonna have a lot of honorable mentions here, man. Unfortunately, God, I can't believe he's not on my list, but Mickey's not on my list, man. Miggy's not on my list. I'm sorry.
That's so I asked the guy. So there's one other person that I work with that is at the same level of baseball fan as you and I are. I've proven it. I've proven it with him. I've asked him so many hard questions, and he has at least a general guideline answer. And Miggy was number 5 on his list. He's also a Tigers fan, so I want to throw that in there too. But Miguel Cabrera was number 5 on his list. And I asked him why. And he said, how can you not have a Triple Crown winner in the top 5 hitters on your list?
That is I feel dirty for not even having him on my list, but he's not there. Sorry, guys.
No, he's not. Here's the thing: is that I'll give you some names that I had on my list that I'm not going to touch on.
Miggy was 6 for me. Like he's who I cut out. Like I think I could probably replace him with Pete Rose or Hank Aaron. I would be okay interchanging that.
Rob, so what Bobby and I are doing is we're putting together our top 5 list of who we think are the best hitters in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
No Cubs on either of our list. Sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and share my number 2.
Or White Sox. I don't know.
I'm going to go ahead and share my number 2 because you've already shared. It's Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds could arguably be my number 1. I honestly, he probably should be.
So Barry Bonds' career WAR is 162.8. So not only did he have a career OPS of over 1,000, he was a full season better than anybody else that played his position.
So if Barry Bonds would have played for the Colorado Rockies instead of the San Francisco Giants in 2001, he would have hit 88 home runs.
Is that right?
He would have hit 88 home runs based on the length that his balls went in stadiums that were larger and at the altitude levels. So it wouldn't have been 71, 72. It would have been almost 90. Like MLB The Show numbers. Not that his numbers weren't already there or aren't. There's
Rob says Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas is an interesting name because the big hurt in his peak was elite.
Frank Thomas was an excellent hitter. He was.
That's a fucking tight end playing baseball.
I think Frank Thomas. You could argue him top. You could argue top 25 for Frank Thomas. I don't know if he's. I don't know if Frank Thomas is top 10.
Frank Thomas is probably top 50 as hitters.
Yeah, I was like I said, you could argue top 25. I don't think there's any way he's top 5, but he's
given the hometown love, which I respect that, because we could have very easily put Joey Votto in this conversation. Seriously.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's a great hitter.
Right?
He's excellent plate discipline.
Top 5 best plate disciplines in the history of the game is Joey Votto. He could even be number 1.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
But let's talk about Barry Lamar Bonds. Let's talk about him, because I think this is interesting, because as two adults now that the peak of our love of baseball was during the steroid era, or we're kind of like the love flourish for the game was during the steroid era. Sure. I think that Barry Bonds is always I think Barry Bonds is always on the forefront of our mind as one of the best hitters in the history of the game, because we got to witness another statistical feat that'll never be matched with him. And the thing about Barry Bonds, when you watch him, whether it's 2000s Barry Bonds or late 90s Barry Bonds or early 90s Barry Bonds with the Pirates, his swing never changed. Now, his size changed. I'm not arguing that he got bigger. I'm not arguing that he got stronger. Barry Bonds has the best left-handed swing in baseball, and I'm saying it. I'm saying it's better than Ken Griffey Jr.'s. That feels weird.
No,
but
I disagree.
That's fine.
With you there.
You can disagree with it. This is an opinion of one. It's probably a very small opinion to say that Barry Bonds' swing is better than Ken Griffey Jr.'s.
In what way?
Griffey's.
We got to unpack this real quick.
Yeah. So Ken Griffey has the most iconic swing in baseball, but iconic isn't the best, right?
Okay.
That's how
I see where you're coming from here. Okay.
Right. So I look at Ken Griffey's swing and I recognize. See, Carp. This is a part of being a Cincinnati sports fan or being a baseball fan in the Ken Griffey Jr. era. Ken Griffey Jr. has the most picturesque, perfect left-handed swing that you could ask for. It's long. It's a long, sweeping, kind of dipped, but it's the right amount of dip, and right. It's fast hands, but it's a long swing. It's unheralded. There's nobody else that swings like Ken Griffey Jr., but there's also no one else that swung a baseball bat like Barry Bonds has ever.
The most beautiful swing in baseball is Ken Griffey Jr. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that comment. The most effective swing in baseball, you could definitely argue that for Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds
I think Carp, what he's getting at is the most effective swing, like the most like if you want to be the best hitter you could be, you need to choke up on the bat and get get the barrel through the zone quickly. And that's what Barry Bonds did better than anybody. Right.
So Barry Bonds does the things that you teach every young kid when they're learning how to hit. Short to the ball.
Fundamentals.
Yeah. So it's not too much of a load back. It's hands at a level where you can meet level contact. Fast hands to the ball. Not a long after swing, right? That's what Barry Bonds was. If you watch Barry Bonds swing, his hands were so fast to the ball. And now he did use a lighter bat, right? So it's fine, right? And Carp, and just hang with me here and listen to me talk through this, because this is a thing that I've had to discuss with myself as I've talked about baseball. As a left-handed hitter, that's a big pill for me to swallow too, because I grew up emulating Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing, right? And Carp's a left-handed hitter too. Yeah, Carp's a lefty too. You swing like Ken Griffey Jr. for your whole childhood because that you want to be the swingman logo. You don't get a dedicated logo for yourself without being one of the most iconic people in your sport, right?
Yeah.
Jerry West is a logo. Tiger Woods is a logo. Ken Griffey Jr. is a logo. That's it. There's only 3 people that are logos. But Barry Bonds has the most. If you were going to teach someone how to be a left-handed hitter and be effective in baseball, the 10 steps of his swing are right. He never opens his hips. He never drops his shoulder. He never cocks the bat back. It's limited range of motion before the swing. It's hands directly to the ball. It's bat to the zone. I mean, it's nuts. It's super. Nuts.
It's the most compact swing ever in baseball.
It took him a millisecond to get to the ball. that's the thing is like from both sides of the plate, no matter what you are, the objective is to get your hands to the ball as soon as possible, right? Because once you get your hands to the ball, you can control the direction of the ball off the bat, right? That's the main thing. So when you're hitting, the objective is to be able to control the bat through the zone so that you can cover the 3 quadrants of the plate, being the inner, middle, and outer. Barry Bonds controlled 7 quadrants of a 3-quadrant plate. That's what I think of him, right? Because not only did he control the 3 parts of the plate, he controlled the 4 zones of the plate, which is, the upper left and right and the bottom left and right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else that I've watched in my lifetime that does that ever. And I don't know if you can.
I mean, I think it's one of the beautiful things about baseball is that you don't really see a lot of guys. You don't really see like the same swing twice. Everybody's got their own approach.
Yeah, it's like a fingerprint.
Everybody's got their own little thing that they do at the plate, regardless of what it is. There might be a lot that are similar, but there's no one swing that's the same. And it's one of the more beautiful things about baseball. That everybody's got their style. Like I had my style. Like I had a somewhat open stance, and I was up here a little bit. I know Bonds was more over the top here, so he could kind of crack down and get through the zone. And Junior was always up here, but he was always right there, so he could drop his shoulder and get the bat through the zone. And everybody had their own thing, man. And Barry Bonds just happened to be one of the best to ever do it. So
yeah. I can't believe that there's a whole world of people that don't ever put Barry Bonds in this conversation, right?
If he's not in their conversation, I really don't respect your list, to be honest. I can't. I wouldn't.
No, it's hard. It's hard to, because you are if you are a baseball fan, you do not cloud your judgment based off of whatever performance enhancing substance. It's easy for anybody else to say except for me. That
PEDs, baby. PEDs.
Yeah, that's out there, right? Because Cart put it in the comments too. He brought up A-Rod. A-Rod is one of the best hitters we've ever watched. You don't get 600 home runs and suck.
I honestly forget that A-Rod hit 600 home runs. Like sometimes,
yeah.
I don't know if he didn't quietly do it. Like he was the 256. He got the biggest that's the first big contract that I really remember was his $256 million contract that he signed with the Rangers.
Yeah, he reset the market for free agency in baseball.
Like this is when we were in like middle school, or
we were in middle school,
going into high school, or
it was in that
time frame.
We were in 8th grade. Yeah,
and so there's like $256 million. Like holy shit, that's a lot of money. Like to play baseball. Todd, you okay there?
Yeah. Ice got stuck. Ice got stuck in my throat there. I got a little scared.
That. Sounds like I wanted to make sure you were right. But no, I mean that was like the first big contract that I remember. Then after that, like you just started seeing all these monster contracts, and it's just like I feel like that was like the beginning of like just these like blockbuster deals in baseball.
Yeah, so
not that there wasn't one before, but that's the one I remember.
Yeah, well, Barry Bonds got the contract with the Giants before that. That was the first over $150 million contract in the history of the game too. So I think the interesting thing too, when we talk about Alex Rodriguez, because again, his name is, it's convoluted because of the Mitchell report, but when A-Rod was on the Mariners, when he was 20 years old, 21, 22, 23, he was the best shortstop in the American League. And that's when Derek Jeter was playing too. He moved to third base when he went to the Yankees because of the culture of the Yankees. He was a better shortstop than Derek Jeter. I don't argue it. I'll go to the depths of hell arguing with somebody about Derek Jeter being a worse shortstop than Alex Rodriguez, because
you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I would love to dig into the stats and have this conversation.
We can do that.
I'm not going to have an unintelligent conversation about who's the better player when I honestly don't have the numbers in front of me.
That's fair. Yeah. We should do that before we do. Let's do this. Let's do that off camera because I'll get. I'm very well versed in that. I'm very well versed in that because
I need to educate myself on it. Then
I'm again. I've said this before on here, and I understand.
But
Jared
I think
Jeter
it does say something that A-Rod was able to shift over to third and play it effectively. I don't know if Jeter could have done the same. So I will give you that.
Yeah, so it's very rare that one person could be the best at two different positions in their career. It doesn't happen often.
Mookie Betts.
Yeah, Cal Ripken, right? Cal Ripken did it from short to third.
All right, we need your second. We're getting a little off track here.
Sorry. So, number 2 is Tony Gwynn.
Okay, he's my number 1.
Yeah. So Tony Gwynn has over 3,100 hits, career OPS of 857. He's the only person that, other than Luis Arias this year, that ever got into the conversation of will he hit 400, and that was the strike year. And I think that he was damn near. He was at 396 when the season got shut down. I think this is the stat that stands out to me the most about Tony Gwynn about being one of the best hitters. So he averaged about 687 plate appearances a season. He averaged 29 strikeouts and 55 walks in 700 plate appearances. So that's wild, right? Like that's just an insane stat. And then he's a career 341 hitter with runners in scoring position.
Well, not only that, he had 18 consecutive seasons where he hit 300. The only other player to ever do that was Ty Cobb. And then 2 of the greatest pitchers of his era of all time, Pedro and Greg Maddux, never struck him out, ever.
And he hit over 300 against both of them.
And he hit over 300 against both of them.
Over 400 against Pedro Martinez.
And then Gwynn's most strikeouts in a season was 40. That was in 1988. That is 49 fewer than Miguel Cabrera's lowest total in a year. 49 fewer. Less than half. So
Joey Gallo strikes out that many times in a month.
It's a shame that he was taken from us too early. Too. I would love to see some content in today's world of Tony Gwynn just talking about pitchers he had trouble with and why he had trouble, and talking about today's game, because I think he would have a really, really unique perspective on the game and hitting and the approach that players could take and to get around it, because I think he's just one of the best minds in the game on how to just get it done, because it really didn't matter the count. It didn't matter the count with him. Like it was a new pitch, and he was just going to figure it out.
And so when he played too, I think that was the first time really in the history of baseball where pitching started getting a lot better than hitting. And this is obviously pre-steroid era too, where Tony Gwynn was kind of in his prime, but playing in the NL West and playing in the National League as a whole, he was facing the best pitching in baseball. And he never really hit below 300 ever. What is he? He's a career 332 hitter or something like that. So
it is 338.
Yeah, 338. Thank you.
Almost 340 career on almost 10,000, 9,300 at bats. It's insane.
So let's round it up to 10,000. Right. So let's round that up to 10,000. That means 3,400 times he's getting a base hit. That's the easiest math I can do. Right.
He had 3,100 hits. So
yeah, he had 3,141 in his career in total.
So if he had 800 more at bats, he'd probably be closer to 4,000.
Yep. So it's really hard for anybody to argue with it. Somebody who can create contact is not one of the better hitters in the game, because Tony Gwynn created so much contact that he was able to keep people pitched around him in a completely different way, and then they couldn't pitch around him because he still put bat on ball.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't walking, 100 times a year. He was only walking 55 times a year. So even his putouts were contact-based, and most of his plate appearances were contact-based. It wasn't like he was walking a bunch. So that's where Tony Gwynn's different to me, is that 90% of his plate appearances generated real legitimate contact.
Sure.
And he got on base, or he had base hits almost 34% of the time. We'll never see that ever again.
No.
I don't think Luis Arias does that sustainably over his career. Now it's great to watch him do it right now because the game is so much different to where there's not a lot of guys that are hitting high for average. It's mostly power, and Arias gets to come into the conversation like, oh, this is fun. This is different. So it's good for young kids, but
right.
You're not going to get to see that.
Yeah, that's one guy I wish I could go back and watch, Tony Gwynn. Love to see him play.
Me too, man. Me too. I never got to see him play in person. It was, how often was Cincinnati or San Diego coming to Cincinnati?
Not very often.
Not very often. That means we never got to see.
And, that was 01. I mean, we were 10. Like,
yeah,
there's probably not much of it we would have remembered anyway.
No. Yeah, him and Wade Boggs both got their 3,000th hit in the same season.
That would have been a sweet couple of games to go to.
And both of them, their 3,000th hit was a home run.
Wow.
And Wade Boggs did it in a Tampa Bay Rays uniform, and that's what he retired in. That blows my mind.
Wow.
That blows my mind that Wade Boggs retired. And he's the only person still to date to retire a Tampa Bay Ray.
It's the only person?
Yeah, who else has played for Tampa Bay is in the Hall of Fame, dude.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Fred McGriff is a Brave. That's it. Other than that, they really haven't had that many Hall of Famers cross paths in Tampa. Not in baseball, at least.
Yeah. Maybe moving forward, if Randy Arozarena sticks around and continues to do what he's doing.
Wander Franco, too.
Yeah, we'll see. But then you had Ichiro as your number one, right?
I did. And you had Barry as number one. Or who'd you have as number one?
Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn. Okay. And you had Barry at number 2?
Barry 2, Ichiro 3.
Okay. So
like I said, like 1 through 3 was interchangeable for me. Like I could have had them in any order and wouldn't have cared. Like
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about we're trying to pin the greatest of all time against each other, right? Like that. It's such a hard conversation to have that you're.
Well, I mean, I think they all did different. I mean, I think Gwynn and Ichiro are kind of similar, in their approach and their style, and that's why they were really successful and had a lot of hits and good discipline, and Bonds was able to do that with the power. And that's just that's the one thing that makes Barry so special, was that he was able to do it, and he had. I mean, even before the Reds, he was still hitting bombs.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You know what's great? I think
fun list though.
Yeah, out of that list, I think there's only one true right-handed hitter. It's just Pujols, right?
Yeah.
Because Pete Rose is a switch hitter.
Pete Rose is a switch.
Everybody else is a lefty.
Yeah. I mean, honorable mentions though. Who do you have for that?
So this is it's getting a little spicy here because my honorable mentions are a little bit more unique. So Craig Biggio is one of my honorable mentions.
Okay.
It's a 3,000 hit
for
guy.
top 5 though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sell me. Okay, here just hear me out because I think that he gets kind of overshadowed because he played at a time where the juice was loose. So he's a guy I think that gets overshadowed by the steroid era.
Because he wasn't doing it.
Right. So he played 20 years, and of his 20 years, 17 of his 20 years, he had 130 hits or more. Okay. He's a career 280 hitter, 3,000 hits, almost 700 doubles, career OPS of almost 800 as a leadoff hitter. And he also is the all-time leader in getting beamed.
It's very true.
I think that the thing when I think about Craig Biggio, right, because I think this is probably the name where you're like, it doesn't really count.
What's his on-base percentage?
Almost 400.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And He led the league 6 times in hit by pitch. He was hit 150 times in a 20-year career, which you could put 10 guys together that probably don't get hit 150 times in total in their career.
Yeah.
But I think that I look at Craig Biggio as probably in our timeline of the beginning of baseball being the most consistent leadoff hitter that we watched. So
yeah,
that's just right. I just think of him as
I mean, I just think whenever I think of the Astros, I think of Biggio, Bagwell. Like those two guys. Like those are the two guys that immediately come to my mind.
Yeah. So 2 years of 50+ doubles. Like it's I think that you talk about the top of your lineup being, get on, knock him in. Craig Biggio is the best knock him in guy that you could have had during the 90s. I don't think there's anybody else that played in the 90s that was a better leadoff hitter than him. And that, you got to remember that Houston was kind of shitty for a lot of his career too. They were bad. They were bad in the American League, and don't forget they were in the NL Central. And they were bad in the NL Central, so it took a while.
Yeah,
it took a while, and by the time that they were getting good, it was the end of his career. So, Craig Biggio is my honorable mention. That just seems a little wonky, but I had Miguel Cabrera, I had Pete Rose. I had Joey Votto in the conversation on my list. Yeah. I had to teeter through my list that way. Hank Aaron was somebody that I had in my list. When I started my list, I had 19 people because I just went right off the rip in my brain. Like, who can I put in the list? That's the top 5, and 19 put them. Kind of got set up. So then I had to tear them out after that.
I want to dig into this Frank Thomas comment that Rob put in the chat real quick, or put in the chat a few minutes ago, because I don't think he's far from the truth, though, because he had a long career.
He did. But here's the thing about Frank Thomas is that as he started aging in baseball, he started getting hurt a lot too. So his numbers teetered off fast.
He's a career 300 hitter.
Yep.
521 dingers. He didn't have any seasons over 200 hits, but he had quite a few that were touching it and well over 150. Career OPS is 974.
Woo.
Wins above replacement 74. I mean, he's solid. I don't think he's in the top 5 conversation, but if there's a top 50 list, he's definitely on it. In my eyes, I think he could definitely be there.
Somebody that we didn't talk about that could have definitely been in this conversation too is Ted Williams.
Oh, for sure.
Very easily. I think that.
Well, we put a restriction on the time frame, but so technically, I think he played. Didn't he play almost up until 1960? Had to be close.
So he fought World War II, didn't he? So he was off during. I mean, he played more in the late 30s, 40s into the 50s.
Well, let's look here. His last season was with the Red Sox in 1960.
Yeah, so
he played from 1939 to 1960.
Yeah, because he went to he fought World War II for 2 years.
Yes, he from 1940. He missed. His last season was in 1942, and then he came back in 1946.
Yeah.
So he missed 3 seasons.
3? Oh shit! So I thought it was only 2.
He lost 3 seasons to the military. Career 344 hitter, 11 over 1,000 OPS, 121 wins above replacement. I mean, this guy is definitely an honorable mention if he's not on your list, and if he's not on our list, well, he's obviously not on our lists. And if you want to give us crap for it, you can, because that's justly due. He was an amazing hitter. Lots of MVPs. This guy was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was insane.
So, but yeah. I don't know what else there is to say about it. But yeah, Ted Williams definitely should have been on my list and wasn't. So
I wouldn't sweat that. Again,
Wow, they actually have. He died July 5th, 2002, and it says buried, frozen.
Yeah, he's cryogenically frozen like Walt Disney.
That's crazy.
Try to bring him back to life at some point in time.
Could you imagine?
All right, no. So I looked up OPS, right? Because that's kind of your parameters of the perennial power hitting, right?
Sure.
So I'm looking through here, and there's a couple guys on here that maybe we could have had a discussion on, but I'm gonna give you a couple names here that are on this list that are interesting. So Mike Trout is in the top 10 all time in OPS.
That doesn't shock me.
Jimmy Fox is number 5.
Wow.
Again, before our time.
That's old. It's an old fellow.
Yeah, way before our time. Lou Gehrig is number 3.
Damn.
So here's how the list rolls out here.
Is number 1 Barry Bonds?
No, number 1 is Babe Ruth.
Wow.
Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Lou Gehrig is number 3. Then it's Barry Bonds.
So Barry is 4 on that list.
There's Jimmy Fox, Hank Greenberg, Red Sox great. Rogers Hornsby, which not ever known for his power in lifetime. But again, this is a guy that played in the early 20th century. How would we know anything about Rogers Hornsby? I know him more from watching him in a video game than I do in real life. Manny Ramirez is number 8 all time.
No shit.
Manny Ramirez's career OPS is 994.
That's strong.
Yeah. That's wild.
Does that mean Frank Thomas is on this list?
Yes. So Mike Trout's number 9. McGuire's 10. We didn't even scratch Mark McGuire in this conversation.
We talked about Sosa and Bonds and Griffey. We didn't even talk about McGuire.
Didn't even talk about McGuire. The guy I work with brought Mark McGuire into his top 5 conversation for almost the same identical reason that I talked about Barry Bonds. Best right-handed swing in the history of baseball, Mark McGuire.
Okay. I can't argue with it.
Number 11 is Mickey Mantle. It's, in my opinion, the second best switch hitter of all time. Joe DiMaggio at 12. Stan Musial at 13. Frank Thomas at 14. Larry Walker, number 15.
No way.
Larry Walker.
Wow.
Jim Thome, Todd Helton, and Jeff Bagwell all in the top 20 all-time OPS.
Jeez.
2 Colorado Rockies in the top 20 all-time in OPS.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. You know, I can't tell you the last time I thought about Larry Walker as a baseball player.
Yeah, no, I can't. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting way to take a look at it. Granted, I think OPS is a great stat to measure things off of, but in another vein, I don't, because like there's so many players on that list that are pre-1950. And when it was just a different game. Sure. So I don't know if it's the right way to attack this type of a conversation.
Right.
But you got to give credit where credit's due. And those guys, in that time, they were the best at what they did. And that's all fine and dandy. But I have a different way of looking at things, and I look at things of, could they do it today, or could somebody today go back then? And I think players today would have no issues going back then. I think it would be unbelievable to see a Mike Trout or a Ken Griffey,
Aaron Judge
prime, or an Aaron Judge, or Mike Stanton, Giancarlo. Go back there and hit at like an absolute nuke.
I would love to watch Giancarlo Stanton play at the Polo Grounds.
Oh my God!
Seriously,
I'd love to see anybody play at the Polo Grounds.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you're right. I don't think OPS is the one that conquers all in terms of hitting statistics, right? I think for me, I use that as so that's my starting metric of who am I going to look into, right? Because that means that they're on base and that they're getting a decent amount of extra base hits, right? That's why I kind of said that about Shohei, because Shohei's not in any conversation for OPS. Or I'm sorry, Ichiro. That was a very weird so I don't talk about Ichiro in the OPS comment and the OPS conversation because 60% of his hits were singles. But when you look at Ichiro as a hitter overall in baseball, his impact on winning games was much greater than a home run hitter, right? Yeah. And that's kind of how I see him, or like Tony Gwynn's kind of the same way. Like his impact on being actively involved in a game and winning a game is much different. Yeah. So I think OPS is good for respecting like true power, right? In your time and the time frame of what you're playing. So like the Mike Trout to me is insane to be in the top 10, and we didn't say anybody that had played after 2006 in the top 10. And that's Barry Bonds. And Mike Trout's in that conversation. That's wild. Because today's game is so much different. And I've said this multiple times that pitching is so much better than hitting right now. To be able to be that effective as a hitter, you're in a lot of very specific conversations. And we didn't remotely talk about
what Luis Arias is doing right now, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy to think that there's literally a guy that can almost go 40% at the plate.
Yeah.
In today's game. Rob, thank you for liking the stream, baby. No, I mean, it's just so. Our lists were kind of similar. I think we had 3 of the 5 matching, and then our bottom 2 were a little different. Yeah. Well, not necessarily the bottom 2, because I think you had Bonds 5, right?
I did, yeah. So, I think I only had Pujols and Musial different than you.
Yep.
And you had Rose.
I had Pete Rose and Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Those are the other 2. Merely statistical reasons for those guys. One, most home runs prior to Barry Bonds, and then the guy that broke Babe Ruth's record, and then the guy that will never have that record broken. So,
right.
If there was one guy to do it, it would have been Ichiro, and he didn't play all of his seasons in the majors, so that's the only guy that could have done it.
Yeah, and he didn't even do it over his professional career either.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Insane.
Pete Rose is the hit king for a reason. He holds that name in high regard because he is truly the hit king.
Yeah, as he should. Yeah. And it's going to be really disappointing to see him get in the Hall of Fame after he dies.
Yeah, the postmortem Hall of Fame induction is going to be rough.
It's going to be really shitty, but
there will be no Cincinnati sport fans there. That's the crazy thing.
Nobody's going to show up. Why give him the posthumous award? Like, give it to him while he's here to appreciate it.
Yep.
Anyways,
he's 80. He's over 80 now. It's time.
It's not like he's his days on this planet, especially with the life that he's lived. His days on this planet are numbered.
It's the reason why he lives in Vegas.
Hey, at least he's living life, man. That's the most important thing. But all right, we're getting to about the end of the show here, chat. If you guys have any other comments to wrap anything up, let us know here in the next second. Todd, you got anything else you want to touch on?
Well, I do want to briefly touch on the stuff that's going on in Oakland because I think it's important to baseball.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. So, obviously, the A's are going to be moving their operations to Las Vegas by 2027. That's the current trajectory of them building a stadium and et cetera, et cetera. And A's fans are.
You want to know what my first thought was? This is us. This is Cincinnati. That was like it just felt so like this is what's happening to us, and this is what's been happening to Oakland for the last 20 years. 30 years, 40 years, however long it's been. And I'm like, this could be us if it gets out of control. That's what I'm heading at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, so I think that A's fans are finally kind of stepping back, and something that happened during the Tampa Bay series. I believe the second game of the series is, all the fans came out in droves and they almost sold out the stadium, and they were all wearing shirts that just said "sell" because here's my stance on this. Is that A's fans have not showed up to that stadium in over a decade. And now that they're leaving, everyone's interested again. It's very frustrating for me as a baseball fan to watch all these people come out. And I think it's interesting. Protest is a hot thing to do, right? In general. But why the fuck are you doing this now? It's done. They're going to Las Vegas. It's fine that you want the A's owner to sell their organization. They're not going to stay in Oakland. No one's putting money into the Coliseum. It's broken. The mayor of Oakland is not putting money into Oakland. It's broken. I'm sorry. If you're an A's fan, an Oakland A's fan specifically, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry that this has happened to you, but where have you been the last decade?
Yeah.
You could have done a lot more in the last decade to save the organization than coming out to, this week to protest the team. They're moving because you guys weren't there before to buy tickets. And that's
exactly what we're doing right now. We're protesting the rest.
Right. We are. You
know what I mean? But is it?
But
I get what you're saying though. Like it's been a decade. Like I don't know, but like it's time to cure. Like, but because shitty ownership is shitty ownership. If the Castellini family still owns this team in 10 years, are you going to have the same thoughts?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because at the end of the day, if you have ownership that is failing to and continues to fail and fail and fail, why are you going to continue to support something that doesn't work? And I understand why the mayor of Oakland didn't want to put any money into it, because obviously he sees the same things that the fans are seeing, that if the ownership doesn't give a shit, why should I dump tax money into this stadium to make it better?
Right. Well, right. I see what you're saying. It's different though, because the city of Cincinnati isn't giving up on the city as a whole. The city of Oakland has given up on the city of Oakland.
True.
Right. That's the disparity here. And when A's ownership was putting money into the organization and trying to build a good franchise, and I think that Moneyball misconstrued what Oakland was really trying to do in the 2000s, because that movie kind of romanticized that they were just doing all this value shopping and that's how they were putting a team together. There wasn't anybody on that roster that wasn't making less than the vet minimum, and their top players were still getting paid in the top 5% of baseball, right? So when the A's ownership started shifting was last year, right? Because the previous 5 years prior, ticket sales kept decreasing and decreasing, and they reached out to the city of Oakland and was like, hey, our stadium is failing as infrastructurally as a whole, and we need help with this because we're not generating the ticket sales to come in, and we don't have enough income to support this. That's different than what's going on in Cincinnati.
Right.
So Great American Ballpark is it's a less than 30-year-old infrastructure. The city of Cincinnati is not declining right now like Oakland is.
True.
The Castellini family made a conscious decision last season going into this season, that they were going to value shop, right? Because in 2019, we weren't having this conversation, Bobby. They signed Trevor Bauer. They signed Mike Moustakas. They had Sonny Gray. They did the things that they needed to do and win in that moment, and then it failed. Where the Castellini family failed the community of Cincinnati was that they just didn't.
They gave up.
Well, they gave the fans an ultimatum, right? That's the difference. Oakland never gave their fans an ultimatum. Oakland said, please come to our games. We have $7 tickets. We need you here. if you come in here, we can help. We can help each other.
Right.
The Castellini family said, "What are you going to do?
Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go?" Oakland never said that.
Yeah. That's a great
point.
That's a great
point.
So
that's the disparity, is that the Castellini family disrespected the fan base. And I'm sure there's an Oakland A's fan that says that, the ownership of the A's disrespected their fan base. But where were you in 2019 when they were selling 4,500 tickets a game with a winning record? They were in the playoffs 4 years ago, dude. Like, there's no reason why you weren't at the games. That's a winning team.
Yeah.
So that's the big disparity, is that there's just,
it's sad.
Reds fans didn't give up on the Reds. Reds fans gave up on the owners. The boycott is the ownership group. A's fans, they boycotted the franchise.
Yeah.
That's a completely different conversation.
No, absolutely. Rob, if you're still in here, we'll go ahead and touch on your comment now. We can kind of just build this one together, at least just kind of spitball it here.
Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks should be number one.
Yeah, I won't argue that way. I won't argue.
Ernie Banks has to be number one.
Are we going Cubs, Sox, or both?
Let's do both.
Okay. Well, I mean, Frank Thomas is on this list.
He is on the list.
Where is he on this list? That I'm not sure. But he's definitely on it. Rob said both. All right, cool. Yeah, Ernie Banks, I think he almost, I don't think there's really should be an argument there. Let's think here.
I mean, I guess you gotta dig pretty deep, because you got to think the White Sox were not good for a long time.
That's what I'm trying. Paul Konerko?
Ooh, that's a good one. He's at least top 5 for the White Sox.
Yeah, let me look his stats up.
You got to say Ron Santo at some point in time, right? Because I think Ron Santo is probably one of the best Cubs players of all time.
Oh, let's dig in here. Paul Konerko, career 279 hitter. He played from 1999 to 2014. He was with the Sox.
Yeah, I think the best White Sox hitter of all time has to be Minnie Minoso.
Ooh, I don't know that name.
Yeah, that's a 50s, 60s name drop there for you.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, he's got to be the best White Sox player of all time.
Okay.
I think he might be.
Well, I mean,
and don't quote me on this, but he might be the first Cuban in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Because I know he was Cuban. That was a big thing, because he was playing in the 50s.
He bounced around. Guardians, White Sox, Guardians, Sox, Guardians, Cardinals, Rangers.
His best years were with the Sox, though.
He had his longest stints in his career with the Sox. He retired with the Sox. He played from 1949 to 1980.
Minnie Minoso did?
No, I'm sorry. He must have been coach. No, he said he played 3 games in 1976 and 2 games in 1980.
Holy shit!
No, there's no way.
Yeah, Frank Thomas is in the conversation.
Sammy Sosa has to be.
Yeah, Sammy Sosa has to be in the conversation. If we're getting super, super old, guys like Cap Anson and Eddie Collins and shit, God, that's probably as far back as they go. Eddie Collins is like the 1910s. That's really testing my knowledge of baseball. That's just a name I know of the Cubs. But the Cubs were bad for a long time. I think.
Could you say Mark Grace?
Ooh, might be the drunkest top hitter of all time.
I mean, he had career 300 average.
Yeah, he was a good hitter.
He played from 88 to 2000, 12 years with the Cubs.
Did he retired with the Diamondbacks, right?
He retired with the Diamondbacks. He won a series with the Diamondbacks in 01.
Yeah, he was on the Luis Gonzalez famous hit. He was the first baseman for that team.
Yep.
He was the announcer for the Diamondbacks for a little bit until he got too many DUIs and had to be excused from his job. But yeah, Mark Grace was a great hitter in the 90s.
Yeah.
Those 90s Cubs lineups weren't slouchy, but their pitching sucked. It was so bad. After they traded Greg Maddux in the early 90s, they just had no pitching for a very long time until Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor came about. So that's like a 9-year lull, 8-year lull.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cubs were bad for a long time. Chicago baseball was bad for a long time. 8 years. Thank you, Rob. Because Kerry Wood had 20 strikeouts in 99. I don't think it was his rookie year when he had the 20 strikeouts. That was against the Astros too. That was the Bagwell Biggio Astros.
How long did Ryan Sandberg play for the Cubs?
Ooh, that's a good question. I know he was on the Cubs in the early to mid 90s. Did he have a 50 home run year? Ryan Sandberg.
I'm looking him up right now.
It was 98 when he had the 20 strikeout year. Thank you. My knowledge of Kerry Wood is only the 30 for 30 they did about his 20 strikeout performance.
Oh my God. I just saw a TikTok and that was the 25-year anniversary of it recently. Ryan Sandberg, career 285 hitter. The most home runs he ever hit was in a Cubs uniform. He hit 40.
That was 1990, right?
1990. Also, won MVP.
He was the MVP that year? Mm-hmm. Ooh. My knowledge of him comes from
showing. Wait, hold on. What is MVP -4? What does that mean?
Oh, that's where he ranked in the MVP voting.
Okay, so he won MVP 1984. That was the year he won MVP.
No shit. Mm-hmm. Ryan Sandberg won an MVP?
Yep, MVP in 1984 with the Cubbies.
What?
He hit 314. He had an 887 OPS. He knocked in 84. He hit 19. That's tough, man. How did he win an MVP?
Dude, the late 70s and 80s were bad hitting baseball, dude. Jim Rice was the power hitter in that time frame, if that gives you any reference of who was
okay, so the finishing, the top 5 for the NL was Ryan Sandberg 1, Keith Hernandez 2, Tony Gwynn 3.
Keith Hernandez? Oh, my Lord.
Was 2.
If there was a voting for best mustache of the year, I'd be on board with that.
Rick Sutcliffe was, I don't know why my computer screen keeps going to sleep. I'm doing something on here. Rick Sutcliffe was 4. Gary Matthews was 5. Mike Schmidt finished 7th on this list.
That was the end of his career.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Wow.
Yeah. Baseball was bad in the 80s.
Right. Bro. That's crazy. He won an MVP with those stats.
Baseball was bad in the 80s.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a tough time for baseball. Great uniforms.
The AL MVP was Willie Hernandez.
What? Oh, give me the top 5 of the AL MVP candidates that year.
That was a pitcher, too.
Yeah.
Ken Urbeck for the Twins was 2nd. Dan Quisenberry with Kansas City. Eddie Murray was 4. Don Mattingly was 5.
Oh, my God. 2 pitchers were in the top 5 for MVP voting in the American League.
Kirk Gibson was 6.
That's
Tony
a bad
Armas,
time.
Dave Winfield, Alan Trammell, Willie Wilson. Let's round out to 10. But God, 80 were bad, weren't they?
All right, Rob asked for a top 5 then to wrap it up. So Santo, Sosa. Oh, sorry, Banks.
Ernie Banks.
Santo, Sosa,
Frank Thomas.
Canerco.
I'd be okay with that list.
That's all I got.
I'd be okay with that list. All right. So, yeah, that's a good question, Rob. You took us down a nice little rabbit hole there. That was fun to know that Ryan Sandberg won an MVP in 1984.
I can't believe Dan Quisenberry was in the top 5 for an MVP voting. That blows my mind,
dude. Well, you learned something new today.
Fuck. Baseball sucked in the 80s. That's what I learned.
It certainly did. Let's go, Paulie. Paulie made the list. Yes, he did.
Former
all right.
Cincinnati Red.
Yes, absolutely. All right, chat. We're gonna wrap it there. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We're gonna come up with some different topics, but I kind of like these top 5 lists for hitters. We might go city by city or a team's best 5 hitters of all time. I think we might be able to have some fun with those lists and get in some conversations and learn some things. But no, you guys have a great rest of your weekend, Todd.
Hold on. Rob said best punch in baseball.
Nolan Ryan.
The best. It's Nolan Ryan punching Robin Ventura, and it's not even a conversation.
Headlock. How many punches did he get in before everybody else tackled him?
5. He punched Robin Ventura in the face 5 times before. And I know he's talking about A.G. Pierzynski, and I think that's iconic in Chicago.
Best brawls in baseball. We can do that next week.
We can do that next week.
All right.
That's a good one.
Rob, thank you. See, everybody's coming in here with lit ideas the last couple weeks. So, best brawls in baseball coming next week live.
Let's get it.
8:30 Thursday. Be here, be square. Todd, you have anything else? No. Great. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll catch you later. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Best baseball brawls in the history of the sport. Maybe